That's KFYI. And if you're a first-time listener, I'm a former Mr. America. I'm a world champion, Mr. Universe twice from the 1980s. Nutritionist, life coach, expert in corrective exercise. I mean, I've got a lot of experience under my belt, working over the many, many years I've been in this industry when people didn't do what I do. We were in personal training before personal trainers became, the big thing in gyms. Okay. Anyhow, what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about you and a number of different issues. Well, let's start out with these Times articles because this past week has been highly political when it comes to nutrition. With the addition of RFK Jr. into the Trump campaign and his focus on diet and its role in sickness in America, I think it's very relevant because this is what Dr. Fitness, that's me, has been pushing for the last 30 plus years. You know how Big Pharma and Big Food's making a lot of money off of people when we're sick and fat. And so Time magazine came out with their article this past week that basically contradicts their article of a year ago. A year ago in January 2023, why ultra-processed foods are so bad for you. And then this past week, they came out with an article why one dietitian is speaking up for ultra-processed foods. And she gets into defending these foods, and I'll share a little bit with you. Her name is Jessica Wilson, and she's passionate about her papasas, whatever those things are from Costco. Papupas, whatever. Anyhow, you know what I'm talking about. It's food. Not just because they're tasty, but also because they've helped the California-based registered dietitian, fight back against the mounting war on ultra-processed foods. It all started in the summer of 2023 when author and infectious disease physician Dr. Chris Van Tulleken was promoting his book, Ultra-Processed People. While writing it, Van Tulleken spent a month eating mostly foods like chips, soda, bagged bread, frozen food, and cereal. What happened to me is exactly what the research says would happen to everyone. Van Tulleken says he felt worse, he gained weight, his hormone levels went crazy, and before and after MRI scans showed signs of change in his brain. As Van Tulleken saw it, the experiment highlighted the terrible emergency of society's love affair for ultra-processed foods. And she goes on to share her story that she actually felt better on them. Yeah, she felt better on them. And when she says you discuss what ultra-processed foods are, and let me sum it up this way. If you shop down the aisles, it's processed. If you shop the perimeter of the grocery store, in many cases, it's minimally processed. But anything in the grocery store has got to be processed for it to be there. Otherwise, you couldn't eat it. Okay, meats would spoil, milk would spoil, fruit would rot. I mean, it's just there. Okay, it's going to happen. So it has to be processed to a certain extent for it to stay on the shelf. But the ultra-processed foods are the ones that are down the aisles. Things that are in cans and in bags and boxes and things. Those are ultra-processed foods. And when you pick up the label and you read it, anything more than what the food actually is a process of putting that food and preserving it. In a lot of cases, what's in the ingredients panel, you don't have no idea what that even is. And the purpose for many of these foods is not only preservation of the food so it can stay on the shelf, but it's also to stimulate the appetite of the consumer. And why is that? To make you eat or drink more of what they make. So being a proponent of the low carbohydrate diet, you can call it keto. I don't go as low as that. I go maybe 50, 60 grams, 70 grams a day because I'm very active. It's still low. When you eat on my type of diet, to eat like Lance diet, you have more grasp of your appetite. In other words, you don't have as big of an appetite because these additives that are put in packaged processed foods stimulate the appetite. That's the objective. RFK's argument, not only did they do that, but they increase the risk of many diseases from cancer to autism, and he goes on, and diabetes, and I totally agree. Because if you're on a diet which has minimally processed foods, your chance of getting sick goes way down. Your immune system works better. But we live in a capitalist society, which is the best in the world. It allows people like me and people like you to do your business and make a living doing it. The same thing applies with Big Pharma and Big Agri, Big Food. And of course, Kennedy, with some of the people he's talked to, of course, Tucker Carlson, okay, with the Means brother and sister, one was a doctor, one worked for Coca-Cola, showed the link and how these guys got together in cahoots together to make Americans fat and sicker. And so now we look at, a country where, I know he says 74%, but actually the numbers of Americans that are overweight and obese is probably closer to 80, 85%, maybe 90. And so then we had the advent and introduction of anti-obesity drugs to fight what? Obesity. In fact, I've got an article right in front of me, just written a year ago, and I'm going to read it to you again. Why the anti-obesity drug market could grow to $100 billion in the next 6 years. $100 billion. This is earlier this year, the global market for anti-obesity medication, AOMS, reached $6 billion on an annualized basis. By 2030, it could grow by more than 16 times to $100 billion, according to Goldman Sachs research. Obesity, defined as abnormal or excessive fat accumulation that presents a risk to both physical and mental health, has almost tripled around the world since 1975, according to the World Health Organization. Today, it's the fifth leading risk factor cited by WHO for contributing as a primary cause of death globally, driven by factors including eating patterns, levels of physical activity, and genetics. Obesity rates are forecast to keep rising based on current trends. Over half of the global population will be overweight or obese by 2035. One half. Compared to 38% in 2020, according to WHO. Our researchers forecast a $100 billion market is based on the range of drivers for these drugs. $100 billion. In a world population where we're looking at 5-6 trillion people, or billion people, I should say, half obese. You talk about a global health crisis, we have them right in our face. Because when we get into this category of sickness, I want to call it that, the treatment goes way up, cost-wise. Do you realize annually, right now, or a year ago, the American Diabetes Association published the economic cost of diabetes in the U.S. in 2022, a comprehensive analysis assessing the financial burden of living with diabetes in the United States. The economic report, which is published every 5 years, found that the total amount annually to treat diabetes was $412.9 billion. People who are diagnosed with diabetes now account for 1 in every 4 healthcare dollars spent in the U.S. 1 in every 4. And this is people that are diagnosed with it. And that's presently about 30 million people. And the only solution to this problem, because they're not going to get rid of processed foods, ladies and gentlemen, they're not going away. Big Pharma and Big Food have their hooks in our economy. It's not going to go away. But what you do can change. It can change when you decide it's time to do something about it. Taking a drug doesn't solve the problem. Making a lifestyle change does. You have to exercise. You have to change your attitude towards food. Understand the concept of calorie counting, okay, with the American Dietitian Association, okay, what they recommend is wrong. They're in cahoots with Big Agri and Big Pharma. Anyhow, we're talking about, these two articles that came out in the Time magazine about a year apart on ultra-processed foods are bad and ultra-processed foods aren't so bad. And I'm saying, the Big Pharma and Big Agri, that means food companies, advertise. They put lots of money in advertising. Nobody's going to, so you're because we live in a free society, look at capitalism, and it's great. But, these TV stations, radio stations, newspaper print, they're not going to censor these ads. And I'm not asking them to do that. Because their revenue would drop off. You realize that Big Pharma spends over $6 billion a year advertising their drugs. In fact, I want Connor to play that Jardiance commercial. You need to listen to this. Here we go.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily Jardiance. At each day start, as time went on, it was easy to see. I'm lowering my A1C.
Jardiance works 24/7 in your body to flush out some sugar. And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too. Jardiance may cause serious side effects including ketoacidosis that may be fatal, dehydration that can lead to sudden worsening of kidney function, and genital yeast or urinary tract infections. A rare life-threatening bacterial infection in the skin of the perineum could occur. Stop taking Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of this infection, ketoacidosis, or an allergic reaction. And don't take it if you're on dialysis. Taking Jardiance with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar.
Jardiance is really swell, the little pill with the big story to tell.
Festival.
Every time I see that commercial on TV, I want to just laugh because you got all these extra large sized people dancing around, making it look like they're happy. Okay, and so at the end there, they're reading all these side effects. In other words, if your Johnson falls off, you better call your doctor pretty dang quick. Because that's one of the side effects. It's so funny. It's sad. It really is. Glamorizing a drug, the little pill with a big story to tell. Only big story to tell is how much money that they're making. Big bucks off of people being sick. And they're in cahoots with the food companies to do this. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're not seeing this, there's a problem. I had someone make the comment, my doctor chewed me out because they had high blood sugar and they have weight to lose and stuff like that. He chewed me out for living. Give me a physical break. Chewed me out for living. How about chewing you out to keep you living? Because if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to die. We all die, but sooner than you should die. Life is too important. It's too precious. We have too much as human beings to share with people that we love. To abuse it by just putting bad food in our face. Or having excuses why I shouldn't exercise. I'm too busy to exercise. I don't have the time. You have the time to be sick? Because you get sick like this, ladies and gentlemen, diabetes or heart disease or any of these, you're going to have to the doctor's office quite a bit. And it happens more as we get older. This is by Dr. Carl from Moments in Science. Since I recently had some of my ideas about the food industry overturned after reading Dr. Kessler's book, The End of Overeating. Dr. Kessler is really heavy. Not only was he a lawyer, as well as being a pediatric doctor, he was also the commissioner of the American Food and Drug Administration. In his book, he points out the massive contribution about food that exists in America and in many other English-speaking Western countries. He's interested in how the food industry manipulates food and how they have specifically altered modern foods to make them almost addictive. The human body has evolved to eat when it's hungry and to stop when it's full. But the goal of the American food industry, aka Big Food, is the exact opposite. They manufacture a product that stimulates your appetite so you eat more of it and yet leaves you hungry for more. And the way the food industry does this is, he claims, by using a quirk on the human brain to get you addicted to the product they sell. Let me point out that the food industry, I do not mean your local market garden, local purveyor or local grower or operative. No, I mean multi-billion-dollar multinationals who sell processed foods that are so far removed from whole food origins. For most of our many million-year evolution, food is hard to come by. Sugars, fat, and salts were all rare and precious. And so our brains are hardwired to enjoy sugars, fats, and salt. After all, they improve the chances of survival. In the early 1980s, the American food industry released how to really capitalize on this. The food industry began to tailor-make products that combine sugar, fat, and salt with a gorgeous mouthfeel. That effect showed up in different ways. First, sales of highly processed products rose magnificently, and so did profits. The second effect was the obesity epidemic. It was first recognized by Dr. Catherine Fiegel, a senior research scientist at the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. She was analyzing an enormous mountain of data gathered from the U.S. federal government survey into the health and nutrition of American citizens. She found an unusual change from the traditional weight change pattern of the preceding century. Previously, the pattern was that American adults would gain a few kilograms between 20 and 40 years of age, and then lose kilos in their 60s and 70s. In other words, more weight. But now the configuration was very different. There was a sudden spike in the number of overweight. Dr. Fiegel found that some 20 million Americans, or 8% of the population, had quite suddenly, over a mere decade, become overweight. And it continues on and on. She released a large proportion of the American population now had a constant battle with the desire to overeat. The American Journal, the Journal of Clinical Nutrition Investigation wrote that Dr. Kessler theorizes that if you're being exposed to overstimulating food, some individuals develop what is known as conditioned hyper-eating. In other words, they can't stop. And it's a deliberate effort by the food companies to get you addicted to what they're selling, so their profits go up. And of course, what that leads to is sickness, because obesity is tied to almost every sickness we have, from high blood pressure to diabetes to cancers, you name it. Non-alcoholic fatty livers, you name it. So the objective is to make you addicted to the most addictive things man knows, and that's food. Because food, we look at food differently. Because no one, if a person, a drug addict, you send them away to be really rehabilitated, to break the addiction. But when it comes to food, it's more accepted in society. So when a person's sitting there stuffing their face with cooks and cakes and candy and soda pops, no one says a word. because we have to eat and we have to drink, don't we? So to get away with the food drug pushers, get away with making you more addicted to what they're trying to sell, and Big Pharma comes out with a solution. Oh, take Ozempic, take Wegovy, take Dreher, any of these medications to help you get control of it. Oh, we're making money off these people, so let's keep making more and more of them fat. Now let's take the whole world and turn them on like this. That the objective is the food industry is to make you eat their food. And when they have diet soda, these artificial sweeteners, do you realize what they do? They actually elevate insulin. You know what insulin does? It causes inflammation. And it keeps you from burning fat. So I'm drinking diet soda because I'm trying to watch my carbs. No. You drink water. You drink black coffee. You don't drink diet soda. Bad for you. Here's one for you. Exercise. I know I talk a lot about nutrition, but exercise. You know, you think, oh, that's only 15%, Dr. Fitness. Would you, if you drove your car safe 85% of the time and 15% of the time you didn't, you wouldn't have insurance. And you wouldn't have a license. Exercise is that relevant. This is from the British Geriatric Society. 20 minutes of daily exercise can help reverse frailty and build resilience in over 65-year-olds. Yeah, I'm 69, almost 70. Dr. John Travers is general practitioner and assistant professor of public health and primary care at Trinity College in Dublin. His PhD was on reversing frailty and building resilience in older people. I'm considered older. Don't sound it, but I'm considered. Our new study published in Age and Aging shows how a combination of simple strength exercises, that's resistance training, and dietary changes can help reverse frailty and build physical resilience in over 65-year-olds. That's people older or younger than me. Most people believe frailty is inevitable and irreversible as we age. However, this clinical trial showed that a simple, low-cost, home-based intervention can reverse frailty and significantly improve muscle strength, bone mass, activity levels, and slowness in 3 months. The practical and easily deployed approach could yield substantial benefits if rolled out across the world. I've added that part. It says community here. Our team from University College Dublin, Trinity College Dublin, Munster Technological University, and 6 general practices in Ireland developed a simple, low-cost intervention of resistance exercises and dietary protein, which proved to be effective in tackling the early stages of frailty. The intervention included 20 minutes of daily activity at home, which involved 10 exercises to strengthen the arms and legs and improve balance and coordination, as well as consuming sufficient protein, 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight in a normal diet. And older people do not consume enough protein. What do they eat? Carbs. The intervention detailed a new study which co-designed and tested with 112 older people over 18 months in group discussions, interviews, and workshops. It was informed by systematic review of the meta-analysis of all published frailty interventions in primary care so that we could build most effective interventions to date while avoiding shortcomings identified. It was further refined with input from physiotherapists, dietitians, and GPs. Following this, 168 participants from 6 general practices enrolled in a clinical trial and were randomly allocated to an intervention group or control group. Significant improvements were seen in the intervention group compared to the control group, including reversing frailty, better hand grip strength, increased bone, and improved activity in as little as 3 months. They showed they reversed the aging process in those that exercised and ate more protein by 7 months, just in 3 months. In other words, they were 7 months younger than what they started. It says a person with frailty has threefold, has 3 times higher mortality risk compared to those who are not frail. Right there. Ladies and gentlemen, you can reverse being frail by exercising, by eating more protein. But unfortunately, people in my age group, their main activity is spending time in a waiting room waiting for the doctor to see them. And you know I'm right. I go to my doctor a couple times a year. I see them sitting there. They're my age and older. Believe me, they don't look too good. We spend over $14,000 a year just treating diabetes alone per patient, compared to about $5,000 for one who's not diabetic. 3 times the cost. 1 in every 4 healthcare dollars goes to treating diabetes, a sickness that affects 30 million Americans. There's 350 million Americans in this country. What's it, 10%? Whoa. So if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, do something about it. Make that dietary change. Exercise. Okay. So anyhow, we're talking about those 2 articles that they contradicted each other in Time magazine. One that junk food was bad. The recent one that junk food's not so bad. And of course, then it gets into the politics again of RFK's involvement in the Trump campaign. RFK Jr., I should say, Trump campaign. And he's going to literally, if President Trump gets elected again, then he's going to basically allow RFK, I think if I interpret this right, to go after the food industries and get them to clean up their act when it comes to additives and stuff to food. So I'm saying you don't want to basically make this stuff illegal. You want to clean up their act. They don't have to add this crap to it. But if the American population would take the bull by the horn and make these dietary changes, we have knowledge like we've never had before when it comes to food. The low-carb kick has been in high gear now for probably about 10 years. I've been preaching it for 30 or longer. So I was low-carb before these low-carb experts were born. And I could tell you a whole lot more about it. When you go low-carb, believe me, it cuts down, believe me, when you go low-carb, your LDL molecules become larger. That's the safe one. Your HDL goes from, in fact, my HDLs are in the 70s. My triglycerides are in the 30s. My blood sugar is 79. Yeah. All because of eating low carb. Your inflammatory markers go down. We know that. We know that high carb consumption increases glycation of the cells. In other words, sugar coating your cells, which accelerates aging. That's why you take somebody who watches their carb intake and you put them next to somebody who doesn't watch their carb intake, and the person, same age, and the person who eats lots of carbs looks older, their skin and everything. The same thing goes on the inside. Accelerate aging of the organs. It's not just glycation of the skin cells, it's glycation of your organs too. Literally sugar coating the cells. Because people on high carb diets also eat processed foods which have a lot of seed oils in them. And the seed oils are what we call polyunsaturated fatty acids. In other words, the omega-6s. And they cause inflammation. Because insulin causes a conversion of these fats in the liver into inflammatory hormones, which cause inflammation. We know that diabetes is an inflammatory disease. So is heart disease. So is cancer. Now, I'm not saying you're going to live forever. I'm just saying your chance of getting sick goes down. And who wants to be sick, particularly if you want to enjoy life? Because if you get sick and you eat like Lance and you exercise like Lance, or at least something like that, when you do get sick, your outcome will be better in most cases. But you have to make the determination if you want to feel better. if you want to enjoy your life more. You know, all of us, and I'm talking to the seniors out there, we put effort in to raise our kids and our grandkids, okay, into our life so that we can get to a part in our life when we can have fun again. We can enjoy it. And when you're burdened by sickness, you can't enjoy life. You're afraid to get in your car because you're afraid of the next episode you're going to have whatever's going on with you. And the only way to be more sure of that is by being active, like the article on frailty I just read to you, and eating like me. Because the outcome's going to be better. Your chance of getting sick goes down. And I know it's Labor Day weekend, and a lot of people out there are having fun. I'm not telling you not to do that. But get on that diet tomorrow. And we know that most people need to be accountable. Otherwise, they have a difficult time doing these things. That's human nature. That's why professional teams have coaches. That's why kids have teachers. That's why we have doctors. But you need accountability when it comes to lifestyle, when it comes to eating and exercising.